Individuals are more likely to distort their moral beliefs to justify unethical behavior when they feel it aligns with their social or religious identity, shedding light on a troubling aspect of human behavior. It reveals how easily moral convictions can be bent when social or religious loyalties come into play, leading individuals to justify actions that would otherwise contradict their core ethical principles. This phenomenon is not only deeply rooted in psychological mechanisms but also has profound historical and societal implications, shaping how communities and entire nations justify wrongdoing under the guise of higher ideals. History is replete with examples of individuals and groups distorting their moral compass to fit into a larger social or religious identity. One of the most glaring examples is the institution of slavery in the United States. Many slaveholders and their supporters claimed to be devout Christians, yet they justified the enslavement of African Americans as part of God's will. This contradiction between religious teaching and practice was reconciled through selective interpretations of Scripture, which some argued supported the idea of racial hierarchy. These individuals were able to convince themselves that their unethical behavior aligned with their religious identity, thereby distorting their moral beliefs in favor of a socially accepted norm. Similarly, during the European colonization of the Americas, many justified the exploitation and genocide of indigenous peoples by framing it as a divine mission to civilize and Christianize the heathens. The Catholic Church's doctrine of discovery, which provided religious backing for colonization, is a prime example of how religious identity can be used to justify actions that contradict basic moral principles like fairness, justice, and respect for human life. The psychological mechanism behind this distortion of moral beliefs can be explained, in part, by cognitive dissonance. When individuals engage in actions that contradict their moral standards, they experience discomfort or tension. To reduce this discomfort, they often change their beliefs or rationalize their behavior. Social psychologist Leon Festinger first introduced this concept in 1957, and it remains a fundamental principle in understanding how people deal with conflicting values. Additionally, the phenomenon of moral licensing comes into play. Moral licensing occurs when individuals, after acting in a morally good way, feel entitled to act unethically without feeling guilty. For example, someone who identifies strongly with their religious group may feel morally superior because they follow certain religious codes. This sense of moral credit can lead them to justify unethical actions, believing that their overall identity as a good person or a good believer outweighs specific transgressions. A 2017 study published in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin revealed that individuals are more likely to bend their moral beliefs when their behavior aligns with their social identity. The study demonstrated that people who strongly identified with a particular social group, such as a political party or religious community, were more likely to justify unethical behavior if it protected the group's interests. This tendency was even more pronounced in cases where individuals felt their group was under threat. These findings underscore how moral flexibility is not an isolated behavior but a widespread coping mechanism that can arise in many contexts. Common sense tells us that when we prioritize group loyalty over personal integrity, dangerous precedents can be set. Groupthink, where the desire for conformity in a group leads to poor decision-making, often results from this phenomenon. When individuals distort their moral beliefs to align with a group, the group's ethical standards can erode over time. This is why institutions, communities, and societies must be careful not to allow social or religious identity to override universal principles of morality. This presents a critical challenge for individuals and societies alike, balancing the strength of social or religious identity with the need for ethical consistency. Moral beliefs are often more malleable than we like to admit, especially when they conflict with group loyalty. Through cognitive dissonance, moral licensing, and the pressures of social identity, individuals can find themselves justifying behavior that would otherwise violate their values. It's a reminder that true morality lies not in rigid allegiance to a group but in the ability to question and uphold one's ethical standards, even when it is uncomfortable or unpopular to do so.